close look at gender inequality. We're going to look at it through the lens of sport, where it's a little bit more visceral, it's a little bit more public, and it's just as unfair. I have got the most amazing panel for you tonight. This evening we have Jo Tung, who's Chief Executive Tongue Tied. Jo, spectacular career at the BBC, but we won't hold that against her. Then Jo's produced me in the past. She produces 606. She's worked on, you name the sports programme on the radio, she's worked on it. And she has the strongest of views and represents some of the leading sports persons that you'll see on radio and TV. Helen Richardson-Walsh, all I have to say, gold medal winner 2016 women's hockey. Round of applause, please. I could go on, but that's all you need to know for now. Then we've got Liz Ellen, who is a partner of the sports practice at Mishcon de Reya, London's leading law firm. Also, not known to many, fully qualified football agent. Amongst her clients are the likes of Matchroom, and just about everyone in sport who may sail close to the wind or not, needs the best lawyer in the world. This is the best sports lawyer in the world. Give my panel a big round of applause, please. Now, Zach, just to frame us off, just to get us going, kick me the video. Sorry, that's me. Or is it? Is it about full stadia? Is it about the broadcasting rights sold for different sports? Or are we just allowing the gap to widen? How are we going to attract the best young girls into sport with that level of disparity? Is it unfair, or is it just the free market? Views. But just before we do, Mark Sampson. It would be rude to have this evening if we didn't cover England women's football. I don't know if many of you know that the successful manager of the England women's football team was fired yesterday. And it seems for something that happened a rather long time ago. The FA seemed to be getting a bit of a slap for addressing this a bit late. But there was very mixed. I read everything on the paper, but I was reading all the comments afterwards today. And as ever online, it was the Times, Telegraph, and everyone, only men were commenting, and there was a load of cynicism about his sacking. Views?
Well, Women in Football, of which Jo and I are both on the board, did put out a statement. So that's been creating its own reaction today, I suppose. Obviously, there's only so much that we can say given Jo's involvement with Eni Aluko. But it's a mess, and for the FA, it's not the first time that there's been an element of controversy over their appointments. And at some point, they need to start learning from these issues and making sure that things are dealt with better going forwards.
I have to say, for me, if we take ourselves away from Mark for a moment, looking at the FA, if we ever needed a strong body, we need the most popular game in the country. And they're as weak as anything. I mean, it's really hard to have a positive thing to say about the mess of their own creation. Helen?
Yeah, I mean, I don't really know much about the story. I obviously don't know what has happened. You know, none of us really do. It's just what the press put out there. When I was watching the news last night, I was like, how did this guy get appointed in the first place? How did they not know about this until last week? That's what I was thinking. But actually, I was also thinking, this is great. This is on BBC 10 o'clock news. It's women's football. The England manager's been sacked. And I was like, yes, everybody cares about it.
Yes, and they do, and everyone's got an opinion.
Exactly, and everyone's got an opinion. And I actually thought, brilliant.
I'll add to that. I mean, I'm Ennie's agent, so I can't comment on a lot of the stuff. But I will say, obviously, my phone has been ringing off the hook for the last week. However, today, I did get a lot of calls from a lot of male journos, you know, the leading journalists in the industry, who all said, oh, can I just check where Chelsea are playing on Sunday? Can I check where Man City are playing on Sunday? Can I check what time, you know, where can we watch it? And, you know, I'm not saying this is a positive thing in any way, shape or form. It's an awful thing for women's football. It's an awful thing for the FN. It's an awful thing for the people involved. However, if I'm getting phone calls saying, what time's the game? Where can we watch it? Can we be there? I'll take your point.
Yeah, and I think that comes from the fact that everyone now knows the women's football team because of the championship that's just been and the one that was 2 years ago. Everyone remembers that and knows the team, and so they're interested in those players and in the manager, and it now goes beyond what happens on the field, which obviously is not great in this circumstance, but that would be the case in men's football, so why not the case in women's football? So in that respect, it's actually quite a...
Yeah, but the problem is you'll get one live game on BT, which no one watches, and then the
What's BT?
Some people may pay for BT. Very few people. But then the BBC have highlights at 11:30 on Sunday night. So actually, even if you did want to watch the football, unless you're going to go down to Kingston to watch Chelsea on Sunday...
Should it change? Will it change? How are we going to get women's sport? Let's pick football for now. There are lots of people who could be attracted to it if it was on prime time, but the argument would be the commercial broadcasters would say, but... It
was on prime time on Tuesday night, and 1.5 million people watched it.
So it works.
Sky and BT would kill for 1.5 million viewers for anything. So you can't tell me as a sponsor, it's driven me mad, and I've got 20 clients, 4 of which are female players, 16 of which are in the male industry. And since the Olympics in 2012 is kind of when we thought it would change, and it didn't. And then
not at all?
No.
Nothing? After all the success, all the profile?
A couple of clubs went pro. So Man City set up a club, set up a pro club. Chelsea started paying the players. So, yeah, a few people got paid, but it didn't really change. Since the World Cup, 2015, it's changed a bit more. I've lost my point. What were we talking about?
With 1.5 million people coming in onto...
Yeah, so my point is, with sponsors... they'll say it's a vicious circle. We can't sponsor it because we don't get the viewers. And I'm like, yeah, but you need to put the money in to raise the profile. It is just this vicious circle. And now I'm saying, you've got the viewers, you've got 1.5 million people watched it. You just need to, so maybe it is a broadcaster's issue. If you put it on at 8 p.m, 1.5 million people are going to watch it. So on Sunday, for example, if you put something on at 11:30, it's a Sunday night. Who's up at 11:30 on a Sunday night, realistically? We might all put it on the iPlayer, but you'll forget, or something else will happen on Monday. And yeah, I mean to watch it, but I do that, and I'm involved in it. So I kind of think the broadcasters, and I put myself in that, we have to take responsibility, as do the sponsors.
I'm biased when it comes to Matchroom, but I have to say what they've done with female boxing has put it on a par with men's boxing, and it's made it a success instantly. If you go to a Matchroom fight now, you'll go and see Katie Taylor. And before I saw Katie Taylor, my instinctive view towards women's boxing is, I don't want to watch women's boxing. And then suddenly I go to these fights, Katie Taylor is on the undercard along with every other prospect. And she gets the same introduction, she gets the same response from the crowd. Everyone loves the fights. Everyone has total respect for what she's doing in the ring. And I think that they've done a great job of making women's boxing normal. You know, it's there
if
alongside
not even
the
more
men.
attractive.
Yeah.
But is that something to do with having joint bills?
Yeah.
Is that what it is? Is that the root of it? That you're converting those who come anyway for boxing, but now they're broadening their horizon?
Yeah.
A lot of broadcasters say they won't put the football, I'm talking about the women's football here, on at 3 o'clock on a Sunday or 4 p.m. on a Sunday because it doesn't look great because the crowds aren't amazing and they're not amazing for women's football. But I think what Liz is saying about boxing is if you put them on the same bill, it looks great because the crowd's there anyway. And maybe this is something that football need to look at. I don't know how it would work in hockey, but...
Yeah, I mean, hockey do often have joint tournaments, but the days are very long for hockey, and hockey is looking at that anyway because, you know, people get a ticket for one day and they just want to watch 2 games. They don't want to watch six games. But I mean, if you look at the Women's World Cup for cricket, they sold out Lords.
Yes.
You know, for the first time. They then, you know, the viewing figures on Sky were very, very good. So I do think if you build it, they will come. You know, to be really cheesy, I think.
But they advertised that so well.
They did, but I really agree with you. It is down to broadcasters.
So what I'm hearing is if people believe in it, then they take the initial steps, the initial investment, and it is build it, they come.
But it is, it's a sales thing, isn't it? If I say to you, women's football is amazing, and I sit here and give you all the hype, the likelihood is you're going to believe me. If a broadcaster says, this sport is of good enough value and good enough quality that we're going to put it on at 7:45 or on a weeknight or 3 p.m. on a Saturday or 4 p.m. on a Sunday, it is valuable enough and good enough. It's a good enough project. We're going to do that. You go, oh, I should be watching this because everyone's watching it. The cricket, the women's cricket, I don't watch women's cricket. I go to men's cricket. Don't think I've ever been to women's cricket. But that week, the hype that they created around it, I was like, oh my God, I either need to be at Lord's or I need to be listening on my radio or I need to watch it somehow. Because everyone else made me feel I needed to be there. And I don't think they do that with football. When the guys phoned me today about where Chelsea were playing and where Man City were playing, I didn't know Man City's fixture for this weekend. I was scrabbling around. I was like, hold on a minute. I was on the website scrabbling around. I couldn't find it on the Chelsea website. I couldn't find the ladies' fixtures. I mean, it's impossible. And the FA must, as we've always said about the FA, they need to take responsibility for that. It's their league. It's not the Premier League.
So, we're in a golden period for women's sport here in the UK. I mean, an absolutely electrifying period. Cricket, rugby, football, athletics, you name it, and the cream is rising to the top. The England teams, the national teams are rising to the top. Is it just about numbers? Is it simply commercial? If we've had packed stadia, would we have better broadcasting, consequently less of an equality gap in terms of pay? Is it just a numbers game?
Well, it is if you're a sponsor and a business. How many people turn up, really? But if I'm sponsoring an event, of course it's about numbers. I want to know my viewing figures. If I'm sponsoring, like SSE, if they've got this big multi-million-pound deal for 4 years of the FA Cup. Now, they're smart because it's on the BBC. So they know that once a year, I don't know how, I think 1 million people watch the Women's FA Cup final. Smart. We all know what SSE is now, and I didn't know who they were before. But if you're sponsoring a league game, and it's hidden away on BT where, I don't know, 40,000 people watch it, that's crucial. Which game are you going to sponsor?
Chicken and egg?
Unfortunately, I
Chicken
think
and egg? Do you wait for it to be built or do you get involved in building it?
Depends who you are. If you're SSE, you go, right, we're going for it, we're going to make a change. If you're a broadcaster, you could do that, and the BBC have. I don't know that anyone else has.
So let's look a little bit into the future. Let's take women's tennis. It stands on its own 2 legs. It's commercial. It's viable. Wherever it goes, it's packed stadia. People know who the best players are. They turn out for them. It's sort of working. But there's still a disparity in pay.
I think there's not a disparity in pay across all the tournaments. And it comes back to being a commercial issue. The likes of the Grand Slams, they get a sellout, whether it's men's tennis or women's tennis, every ticket is sold for every event. But when it comes to the rest of the tour, there is a difference in terms of ticket sales and television revenues. And so it's difficult to justify paying the same amount when you're receiving less. And I think that's the difference between the Grand Slams where they can justify it financially.
But what I'm saying then, oh well, that's okay then. Is it?
It's not okay, but it's the commercial reality of where we are at the moment.
if we left everything to market forces?
I think it's really easy to say, well, not as many people want to watch women's sport, so therefore we're not going to do. I think it's a really easy thing to say. I think sports have a responsibility. I think governing bodies have a responsibility, and I think everybody has a responsibility to make it change. In hockey, for example, there is, on an international level, funding that we get between men and women is equal. But beyond that, it is far from equal. Even though now the women's team in this country are more successful, our male counterparts can still earn way more than us, because there is a domestic European hockey league. There is the equivalent of the Indian Premier League, the cricket one, so for hockey. There is way more opportunity, which then puts them out there more, which means sponsors want to pay them more. Or is that why they want to pay them more? Or is it because actually they're men and they just watch men's hockey? I don't really know whether that is the case, but there is way more opportunity for male sports people.
But that's got to be a failing of the governing body, because
It must be.
you know, as we were saying earlier, I think women's hockey is one of the most watchable women's sports out there, and I would much rather watch women's hockey than men's hockey. Now, if they put the tournaments out in a way that made them accessible to the audience, then I would watch that.
Yeah, I completely agree. And the consequence of that is, so now because the male teams and male players have developed in this European Hockey League, which has been on television for 10 years, which means that umpires have also improved with the video umpiring and all that kind of stuff. So their product has grown and grown and grown over 10 years. So now when everyone watches it, they're like, oh, men's hockey is way better than women's. It's like, yeah, but you've had that development.
Yes.
And it's the same in football. You know, if it wasn't for Claire Balding and that documentary, many people wouldn't even know the history of women's football and how 60, 70, 80,000 people used to pack the stadiums and watch women's football until the FA said, no, that can't be right. Women can't play sport, and banned it. And so people will watch it if it is on. And it's everyone's responsibility to make that happen.
There's a really good case study with netball's a really good case study because Sky made a real commitment to netball and netball leagues, and I'm not going to say it's on daily, but netball is on a lot. There's like a Fast Fives tournament on this weekend, and Sky kind of said we're going to put some money into netball and take this seriously, and have almost, you know, what I was saying about created the hype around a sport. They have said to us, netball's really exciting, netball's really cool. I mean, netball's the biggest participation sport amongst women in the UK. Sky aren't stupid, but they've also kind of gone, right, there's our audience. You know, women have the purchasing power. Women are playing it. Right, let's put netball on. But Fiat then sponsored netball. They said, right, you're going to televize this. We'll come and sponsor it. And there's, I don't know what the stat is, but the Fiat 500, the little bubble cars, because they kind of everything, all the wraparounds on Sky were this Fiat 500. Sales of Fiat 500 in the last 2 years have gone like that. So if I'm a commercial business, and that's a really good case study, do it with hockey, do it with women's football. I mean, SSE have done it to an extent with the FA Cup, but I don't think anyone else has gone, it's a really good point. Like, women spend the money in households. We just need to see it on the telly and we can't buy it. Yeah, Tap into true. That. What's wrong with it? What's wrong with it?
80% of retail purchase decisions are made by women.
See?
80%. So, what role do agents play in squaring this playing field? If you're representing women and you're representing men, you have a tremendous opportunity. You could be a catalyst for change.
Yeah, and I sort of pride myself on my clients, and I'm talking about media work here. Obviously, club wages, it's very difficult with women. They have a central contract with England, which is a set fee, and club wages are very, very low comparative to the males. So, yes, I can fight a fight on that, but your central contract is a set fee, and your clubs, there's not much variation between players, if I'm honest. However, off the pitch, I feel I have a real responsibility to get them the same wage. So after the Olympics, and we started getting a few media requests in for some of my clients, more so since the World Cup, I will only let my clients work for the same fee they get as my male clients. And that is, otherwise it doesn't happen. And a lot
And did you have to be really tough about that to get it?
Oh yeah, it took me years, and I still argue. And I understand the broadcaster's point of view. What, you know, they'll say to me, yes, but your client here has 1 million followers, social media followers. Your female client has 70,000. If they tweet about my programme, it's not the same impact. I'm like, yes, but female client has 100 England caps. He has 4 England caps. You know, you can't use that argument with me. She's played for England 11 years. He had 2 years in the England team or in and out. Don't try that one with me. So now they do, and actually broadcasters
I'm not sure they would try that one.
But it's tough, and you know, I have 2 hats on because I am also an editor at the BBC, and I do, you know, I'm across wages, so I understand what budgets we have to play with, and however, I just think they both have the same sort of experience. They're both Premier League players. They're both putting in the same amount of hours to turn up to the BBC or BT or Sky, pay the same. And I'll be honest with you, it's only, I'd say, this season, maybe end of last season, that I've achieved that with all broadcasters. And I'm not taking that I did that personally. I think broadcasters have started to take a responsibility themselves and are now realising that we all talk, and I'm quite happy to put it out there that
just on that point, you being editor at the BBC, that stalwart of gender equality pay. Do you earn as much as your male counterparts there, if you don't mind me asking?
Yeah, I do.
Now, is that because of you?
Yeah, I think it's because I ask.
Well, that's the point I'm making.
Yeah, I didn't when I first started.
That's not what they offered you?
No, but even when I was a junior, when I first started at the BBC and I was a sports reporter on BBC Sport Online and used to write match reports, I know for a fact I was on less money than other people, and I took it to the unions, and I got an increase.
How did that make you feel?
I just thought it was unfair. I was doing the same job, and I knew just as much about everything as they did.
But what's interesting, as we see, there are many people who don't want to stand up and have to have that fight.
And they shouldn't have to have that fight.
No, they shouldn't. But you did it. Is that giving us an indicator where the solution is? You just weren't going to accept it.
Yeah.
And you had the confidence of being good, I guess.
I don't think I had the confidence of being good. I just had the confidence of, I don't think it's fair. I think now I think I'm really lucky because I belong to an organisation like Women in Football, and I have a lot of support, and you're able to do that. I think you have to remember that if you're a young woman, I mean, think about working at a football club. If, say, you're the only woman among 60 employees, and they do earn less. You know, we've in our Women in Football survey, we've done some research into earnings of women. You're so grateful to have a job at a football club, and you're sort of made to feel that you're so grateful to have a job full stop. I mean, I should have been grateful to get a job at the BBC. So, you know, why would you complain about being a football reporter? It was wonderful. But it wasn't fair.
Will it get sorted at the BBC?
Yeah.
What gives you that confidence?
I just feel that they're taking it very seriously. It's licence fee payers' money, and they know they have a duty to society to make it equal. And I know there's a lot of work going on at the moment to make it equal.
Helen, Liz, have you ever had the moment when you've had to stand up, when you know that it's not fair and the only option is stand up?
I'm a lawyer, you know, we fight injustices all the time. And
how about personal injustice?
I think the legal industry is different, and that's one of the advantages that I've got, that I come at this from a law firm and a good law firm where actually I think we've looked at the gender issue sooner than most. I've got one of my fellow partners there, and you know, it's another female, and we've come through the system at a young age and been promoted irrespective of whether we're men or women. But you know, I think the one thing that will force change over the next few years, we've already seen the embarrassment that the BBC had when they had to publish their figures, and over the next year we're going to see that across lots of other businesses when the gender pay gap reporting kicks in. And I think that
So step number one is transparency. Yeah. Make it public so the facts are in the open. Mm-hmm. And that's name and shame.
That's exactly what this legislation is aimed at. The different ways that you're having to carve up your descriptions of what you're paying men and women, including bonuses, and you know, senior people, junior people. it will make that transparency come through.
And it will either starve them of talent or they're going to change.
Yeah.
The best people won't go there.
I think that's half the battle. You don't know what other people are earning
Yes.
half the time.
Yes.
And that's then quite difficult to know if there is a fight to be had. But I know a couple of girls after the Olympics last year got their contracts through for the next cycle with their sponsors, and they were going to be on less than all of the guys from the same sponsor, and some of them didn't even go to the Rio Olympics, and they were now Olympic champions. And I just do not understand how that makes sense, because, you know, you talk about profile. The women's team has a massive profile.
Yes.
You know, we are engaging constantly with so many different people, obviously young girls, but also young boys, so many women across the whole, and actually men as well. We are engaging with so many different people. So you can't just say, well, they have a bigger profile, because they don't. So what, I don't understand what the reason is for that disparity.
But do you think women have a responsibility to say something like I say to my employees, I am not going to come to you every October when your appraisals are due and say, would you like a pay rise, darling? It's up to you to sit down in your appraisal and tell me why you are due a pay rise. I mean, I'm very fair and I do bonuses and whatever else. However, you have to understand that men will always say, well, I'm a year on, I've got a year's more experience, so what are you offering me? And as women, we've just got to change
They
our
rarely
mindset.
wait a year.
Okay, even better. Fair play. Give 6 months. If you've done something amazing in 6 months, say to me, Joe, you've changed my job role. Like, if you come to me with a valid reason, who am I to argue? But I think women just naturally don't ask the questions.
I think one thing is, it's not a conscious decision for most people to say, I'm going to pay this woman less than I'm paying this man. But I think that's why this whole transparency and the gender pay gap reporting is so important, because it makes people consider it and think, you know, genuinely about it when they haven't had to before. And that will make them realise that they've made these unconscious biased decisions. And I think that will be an important change.
Yeah, and that's to do with society and how we're all brought up. We all have unconscious biases, all of us. And it really annoys me when mine come into my head, because they are there. Like, you know, that whole thing of, oh, he throws like a girl, that comes into my head. I throw like really well, and I was a girl, I'm now a woman, and when I throw, you know, I'm a good thrower. But even that phrase comes into my head.
Throw like a woman.
Throw like a woman, exactly. But it still comes into my head because I heard it so often, and I still hear it, and it's in there. And I have to stop myself from even thinking it, let alone, you know, it coming out.
It's hard to argue with you, but I'm going to. Because I just don't, I can't get this, that no matter what my subjectivity is, no matter what my implicit bias, no matter, there's a talented person in front of me and I have the option of giving them a salary. Why would I instantly, because it's a woman, choose to pay her less?
Because you can.
Yeah.
No, but because
women
You have for years.
that's crap. That shouldn't.
I get that, but
yeah, of course
it's
it
only
is.
now that we're even speaking about it.
Yes.
So
that's now
let's speak about it, and now
Yeah.
we can start to change it. 50 years ago, it wasn't spoken about.
Yeah.
So, we're going to take a break shortly and we'll come back to some questions from the audience. But let me just throw this one to you, especially of those of you with daughters. And how do we prepare the next generation so they're not sitting up here in 20 years' time saying, you've got to stand up and fight for it. Or it's the employer's implicit bias, unconscious bias. Because we're all feeling it's wrong, and we will understand how it, maybe many years ago where it started, very endemic and deep-rooted in our society. And transparency helps, but there must be more.
I think it's not how we grow and educate our daughters, it's also how we grow and educate our sons.
Very good.
You know, one of the things that women have to battle against is this. This
Yes.
is what we battle against.
Yes.
Men, the biggest
different
killer we know
boxes.
is suicide, because
Yes.
they're told you can't cry, you know, and we are all put into boxes. All of us are put into boxes, and there is negatives and positives to all those things. And it's, for me, and this is what I feel most passionate about, that whole stereotyping thing. We are told you should do that because of what you look like or your gender or your sexuality. You should be allowed to do whatever you want. And I think that's why sport is such a great message, because it is so obvious. It's an obvious thing.
It's an obvious thing that you can, and anyone can.
Exactly.
Yes. Now, is it changing, Helen? Are you seeing significant, tangible change?
I think I am. I actually think I am, and I actually think the BBC have, from my point of view, have been doing a really good job as our leading broadcaster.
Taking ownership of the issue.
Taking ownership of the issue.
Not hiding from it, but what Joe was saying, going towards it, not running away from it.
So, and I think,
as tough as that is.
And unfortunately, I think the written press, I think, needs to catch up. You know, the stat of, what was it, 4%, 6% of media, and we keep going, even though I know that X, Y, and Z are competing that week. Go to the Times on a Saturday, and it's not in there. So that's disappointing constantly, but I do think the BBC are trying really hard to put women's sport on TV, and I do believe it is changing. It is moving in the right direction. There's still a long way to go.
But that's about changing editors. So
Yes.
at the BBC we have some really strong female editors and people who are really pushing women's sport and pushing equality. If you look at the newspaper industry, there's not a single female sports editor on Fleet Street. I'll call it Fleet Street, but...
So,
Was there one?
I had
there's
lunch.
one now, sorry, my bad, there's one.
Alison Kirvin.
Alison Kirvin.
So I had lunch with Alison Kirvin during the week. Alison and I used to work at IPC Magazine's IPC Media, and I happened to be on the board there, and the editor of Rugby World retired. Alison was by far the best rugby journalist on there. It took 3 board meetings of fierce debate, and her publishing editor had proposed to her, and just wasn't. There's 4 women on the board, and they just wouldn't have it. Eventually, she was given the job as the editor of Rugby World. That day in Parliament, Edwina Currie, in a really heated exchange, said, "I'll have you know, one of your favourite magazines, all the men in the house, one of your favourite magazines is now being edited by a woman." And we got the call, and the guy that called us, who was one of the journalists, he said, "The good news is Edwina Currie raised the fact that Alison was appointed. The bad news, all the men booed." How does that... And for us, and then Alison became publisher and editor. She's now the only female editor. She's a sports editor of the Mail on Sunday. And I know this because we're mates. She earns half of what her predecessor did. And he was male. And I remember before she took the job and we were having a real fight about it, so I said, you need to negotiate this. It was so important for her to make a difference, to be the first. Her view was get inside the tent and make the changes.
Is she
from
negotiating
there.
with the man above her, though?
Yes.
Right, so there you go. She needs to become that man.
Yes.
That's my point.
Yes. So even though there's a breakthrough...
But that's our duty, to become those people, and then we pay fairly going forward.
That's one of the things that we're really trying with women in football, is to encourage the more junior and the middle people to get to the top, because until we have more senior women in football, you won't have those changes. We had a leadership course yesterday. 22 women from across the industry coming to learn from a woman who has been at the top how to get there. I think those things are important.
And those things are really important. So let me take you forward and let's set up our break here. Let's go 5 years out from here. We're now seeing equality, equal pay all through the leading sports. What had changed in those 5 years to get us there? If 5 years from here, it's there, it's working. The leading women footballers, it's all equal pay. What has changed in the intervening 5 years?
The professionalism of the governing bodies.
Very good. Anything else?
Equal airtime.
Very good. Agents?
No, because you can negotiate with people as much as you like, but if the money's not there, you're not getting it. I mean, I can be the best agent in the world, but if they don't have it in their budget, I'm not getting it.
What else changed?
Sponsorship.
Yes.
Brands wanting to really back it.
And you'd think
And they'll want to do that when they've got equal airtime. That's
yes. Yes.
That's the thing.
But it's interesting that it starts with the governing bodies.
Yeah.
And that's better, more professional, understanding who they're representing and what they're fighting for.
Sport's been amateur for so long that we have to remember that it's only in a relatively recent period that it's become professional, and yet a lot of the people who are in those governing bodies don't have the professional background that they need in this new era.
So just closing remark before we're going to take a break, and I'll get you back and I'll listen to your questions. Let me go back to what I said, that this is sort of an incredible moment for British female sport. We've never had it like this before. Nearly everywhere you turn, we've got champions, we've got winners, we've got role models, and they're articulate, they're smart. Are we seeing them driving more young women into the world of sport? Is that working?
Yeah, participation is
Yeah.
up.
From what we've seen, myself and my whole squad, we often go into the hockey clubs and round to schools, and that's what we're hearing. People are taking up sport because of what we did, or taking up hockey because of what we did. So it's not rocket science.
But if participation is up, will that lead to spectators, which leads to numbers, which leads to sponsors, which leads to airtime?
Will lead to sales, which will lead to sponsorship. I mean, if everyone's playing netball and wants Mitsano trainers, or whoever I don't know who makes ASICs, whoever makes the best netball trainers, if you're ASICs, you're going to pump some money into it, because you've got, in football, there's 1.8 million women, girls, play football each week. Now, if I'm making football boots,
8 million.
when I was doing boot deals for my girls, some of the bootmakers they didn't even make girls' boots 6 years ago. Now they do, because there's 1.8 million people, women, girls, playing football. So if you're some kind of corporate business, you want to be tapping into that market.
Do you know what? The three of you are making some really strong points about sport, but there's a hint of optimism around here. About the future.
I think we're lucky. We are in that environment where things are changing, and women in football, for example, exist because there is that opportunity to change, and we want to make that change happen. You're a national hero because everyone's watched you win a gold medal, and I think those things are what give us the opportunity to come here and talk about these things, which we wouldn't be doing 5-10 years ago.
Give them a big round of applause, please. We've got some drinks and refreshments outside. Our panellists will be there to join you. We'll take about 20 minutes to come back in. And we're filming on Facebook Live, and we'll get a load of questions from those who are watching the streaming coming through. But I'll come to your questions first. So come and join us for a drink. I'll see you shortly. Thank you very much.